Hello and welcome to another episode of Turjo Talks. I'm your host, Turjo. I don't know why you guys put my last name there too. I'm always Turjo. It's one name. Today's guest is a biotech entrepreneur who's seen in the industry from every angle. Dr. Marta New is the founder and CEO of Radius Research, a drug development organization that partners with biotech companies to accelerate their path from early research through clinical trials. Mm-hmm. You know, it's such an honor to speak to someone like you because I come from oil and gas and boring, and I read this, I'm like, you're too cool for us here. But anyways, I'll keep on going. What makes Dr. New particularly interesting is a diverse background spanning both sides of biotech. Mm-hmm. She's worked in venture capital at firms like Agent Capital and Bexalta Ventures, spent time in a large pharma R&D at Baxter, and has academic roots with a PhD in immunology and an MBA from Kellogg. I never heard that before. Kellogg and PhD in biotech. She's invested in over 20 biotech companies and helped several successful academic spinouts, giving her unique perspective on what actually works in drug development. Today, she uses the cross-sector experience to advise biotech leaders on everything from product strategy, fundraising, helping them navigate through complex journey from lab bench to market. Dr. Marta, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So, a little quick background. Who are you and how did you do all this? And by the way, just found out now that you're also doing Taekwondo. When do you get the time to do all of this? Help us understand.
Yes. Thanks for having me. So primarily I run a company. That's my day job. Yeah. As you mentioned, right. Biotech, R&D. We do it for others. They pay us to run experiments for them. That's basically what we do.
Are you hiring? Can I jump in?
Yeah. We're hiring project managers.
Done.
Which is, I think, probably the hardest job in the world. Project management is like herding cats.
Yes.
Making sure everything is done on time and on budget, but you're not their boss.
No, it's terrible.
Right?
Terrible.
So that's what I do throughout the day. It's called Radius Research, and we're here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Half of my team is also in Chicago because I moved from Chicago to Atlanta, and I hired people who knew people. And, you know, when you live in an area, you ask your network to recommend best people.
So you don't know everything. You need to rely on other people.
Exactly.
How about that?
Yes. And
that's a common theme for owners and CEOs, seems like.
Yeah, it is not a sole proprietorship. Mm-hmm. Radius from day one was a team effort.
Right.
And you know what, frankly, in my line of business, which is contract research, you contract with us to do research and development for you, for drug development. We'll talk about that. Client won't sign up if you're a one-person show.
Right.
Because if you're a one-person show, they know that you're biased in your decision-making. You only have 24 hours in a day, that you have all kinds of, blocks that are making sure that you might fail them.
Right.
But if they sign up with a team, that gives them confidence and calm that things will be done.
That's fair.
In a high-quality manner by people who know it and people who care.
Right.
And so my business could not have existed as just Marta New.
That's amazing. Right? So what does Radius do? Explain to the audience here. So I have a product, a new drug, and I call Dr. Marta. And what's the next step?
Chances are you have something that might be a drug, but it's about 12 to 15 years before the FDA approves it.
Wow, okay.
So a lot of people don't know, but drug development is very lengthy, highly regulated by the Food and Drug Administration.
As it should be, yeah.
Exactly. And so innovation happens at a university. There's a scientist that comes up with a new drug, maybe a new chemical entity, a new antibody, something new.
Right.
But they just don't know how to get it through that highly regulated checklist of what the FDA will want to see them do and generate the data that is it safe and is it efficacious? Right. Can we treat humans and minimize side effects and maximize?
And
does it work?
Right.
Exactly. And so the FDA structures everything in these chunks of, phases of testing. So if you have something that you think looks like a drug, you'll call me up And we'll sit down and figure out, where are you in this 15-year journey?
Got it.
How much have you tested this in the right animal model? Because unfortunately, even at this day and age, a lot of drugs are tested in animals as a proxy to systemic safety and efficacy, right? Because animals, sometimes it's a mouse, sometimes it's a rat, sometimes it's a dog or a pig or a monkey.
Wow.
And you will test them in animals for a couple, 3, 4 years from different angles. You're looking for different stuff. Is the liver going to be okay? Is the brain going to be okay? Is your heart going to be okay? Or the animals? And so that's kind of first phase of testing. And that's when we get engaged with a lot of clients that are still in that early stage of drug development. We call it animal testing. Before we have convince the FDA that it's safe to go into clinical testing, into human testing. So we will sit down with the client. We will figure out the plan of experiments that they need to do or we would do on their behalf. How long will it take? How much money will it be? And that's where the project management comes in. So I'm effectively a program management office, right, for drug development, and that's what we do.
And that's incredible because, giving your resume and bio here, reading the MBA and the scientist kind of works out together perfectly. That makes sense. So, in my mind, when I hear this, the pitch, if I had to sell your product to someone, is very simple. You're a scientist. You are a chemical engineer, whatever. You have a new product. Oh, I need a business partner, a consultant that could really take this thing out to market while I do my own thing here. I'm the expert at this particular field. I know what I know, but now I have a friend and partner.
Yeah, that's it.
That's incredible.
We're the operating partner, business partner, commercialization partner. That's exactly
And for you to know both sides, that's incredible because you know where they're coming from on the other side. You know how they're thinking.
Yeah.
But most guys in the lab does not know how a spreadsheet really works. They shouldn't know. It's okay.
Yeah, and so that's actually an interesting observation that led me to start this business because it's not a very common business model if you think about it, right? There's a gap in the market, the knowledge gap. There's a bunch of brilliant scientists, but they're just not trained in product development and how the FDA operates. And they're too early to sell their drug to a large pharmaceutical company that can actually commercialize it. And so before I started the company and kind of in between running Radius and being a scientist, I actually did 2 important gigs in my life. One, I worked for a large pharmaceutical company, Baxter in Chicago. And I sat in a lot of rooms where I observed how a large pharmaceutical company thinks, how they innovate or they think they innovate, how they decide what they're going to bring into their pipeline to commercialize and manufacture. So that was a huge internal insight building,
Helps tremendously,
tremendous insight.
And you were really seeing kind of behind scenes. Now, when you're advocating for a client,
I know what a buyer is looking for. I was in that room when the buyer was discussing what to buy, right? So that was one big insight.
Incredible, that helps tremendously.
And then after that, I actually moved into corporate venture capital in Baxter and then expanded my career for almost 10 years in venture capital. So I
now actually you know the buyers too.
Exactly. So now my job was to invest in some of these companies that are developing stuff that a large pharma will buy. And then as an investor, bring in the financial rigor and the business side of things to make sure that they're doing things to return capital to us. So those 2 positions in my career shaped my thinking and identified this gap in the market for me to start Radius and then offer the service, which is right now pretty new in the market.
That's amazing. That's great. So you're not, and that's what I wanted to really get and I appreciate that. You're not just running experiments. You're running a full-fledged fractional CEO, CFO, whatever services to testing and getting out of the market. That's amazing.
That's it.
One house that fits all.
One house, an extension of your R&D team from where you're at right now until exit.
And it's so much more efficient too because, one shop is a lot more efficient and budget friendly too, I'm assuming, than going to 5 different people and hoping and praying and That never works. And the FDA seems to make a few changes here and there.
Yes,
to keep up with.
they keep us on our toes. But, the fundamentals of drug development are the same.
Right.
Regardless of who's in the White House, regardless who's running the FDA, regardless of the guidelines, it is knowing what needs to be done. Some of these changes are just either extending or shrinking the timelines or maybe adjusting the budgets.
Right.
But the principles of drug development are identical.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you qualify a client? Me, I have no experience and I just came up with the revolutionary product, I think. Oh, everyone thinks that, right? How do you go through, because you can't take everyone, I'm sure. How do you filter through that process?
Yeah, good question. When we first started, we were quite opportunistic, as you can appreciate. And at that time, I was fresh out of venture world. I was with Agent Capital in Boston, moved to Atlanta. And then my network were very early stage entrepreneurs, very early age therapeutics. If you've been following, venture cash into those opportunities is dried out. Yeah. And so one has to think in terms of where can I sell my service to well-capitalized clients.
Right, got it.
And we're seeing quite a bit of interest from Asian biotech companies. And in Asia, they're in much better position in terms of capital. Right. But there's always interest in accessing the U.S. healthcare market, which makes what that means is you want to make sure that the FDA knows about your product and you're developing for the U.S. market so that U.S. investors invest. So we're right now these days shopping for a lot of clients from South Korea, from China, from Singapore, from Taiwan.
And they all want to get in here.
They want to get in here, and we're creating a pipeline of those opportunities for them to get boots on the ground in the U.S. So that's just one avenue.
Got it.
But again, key for me is to start working with a well-capitalized client because drug development is very expensive. It's going to take 50 to 100 million before they're ready to sell. So these guys need to continuously fundraise. Very capital intensive. It's not like developing software, developing, small business that's local. It is very capital intensive.
And when do you know, on the fundraising side, so now I'm sure you do a budget and you're like, this is projected to be $100 million for this one drug to pass through. At what point do you know that, I don't have a good feeling about this? Is it after the animal testing? Is it at, FDA? When do you know that?
Yeah, very good question. It's very milestone-based product development, and who's not planning for different value inflections or milestones is missing out. And so a very good value inflection is the FDA saying, okay, your data in animals is really good, and I will allow you to start testing it in humans
and that's
in a small
3 to 5
clinical
years.
trial. So that will take, approximately 5 years from that point. And then once you start testing in humans, the very first trial is just to use very low dose to demonstrate safety. You're not even concerned about does it even work.
No.
The FDA,
are they okay?
Are you okay? So then that first clinical trial can be maybe a year or 2 or 3, depending on what disease you're developing a drug in. And it's very common to go to universities like Emory or UGA and tell these students that are healthy volunteers, hey, do you want to be a part of a clinical trial? We're just going to, give you this experimental drug, and then we're going to give you a few bucks and you do blood draws. And a lot of students are, subsidizing their living by participating in these phase 1 clinical trials.
Right.
And then after that, it gives you a sense, the data gives you a sense, hey, if these students are okay, even as we're continually increasing the doses, now in phase 2, we can actually test this in real patients
and how long
look
is
for
that
efficacy.
process, the first human testing?
So first human testing is about, let's say, 2 years for this phase 1 safety trial. And then you go into phase 2, which is in patients, and that can be maybe 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years, because you need to find the right patient to enroll in the study, and then you need to put them on the right dose, and you need to monitor them throughout the dosing. Let's say you're developing something for migraines, right? And so you're testing them for a couple of 3 months, and then you want to follow them post to make sure that they don't have long-term effects.
Right.
So that extends the timelines. That's why it takes 15 years to develop a drug, right? So you have like 3-4 years in animals, and then 2-3 years in poor students that are healthy. And then you have maybe 3-4 years in patients. And then after that, where you have actual evidence that in humans, this is safe and efficacious.
Right.
Then you don't go into phase 3, which is going to be now 5-6 years and thousands of patients. You actually knock on pharma's doors and say, can I please sell this to you?
Please, yeah.
Because there's a relay game in drug development.
And are you doing that too? Is Radius doing that too?
We take them through phase 2, and then we help them sell to pharma.
Wow.
And so it is non-revenue generating business for them. They pay me through their investors' money, and they will never make revenue. They will make biobucks on the back end. So you have something that's intellectual property on day one that smells like a drug, but we don't know what it is. You raise cash. You will never generate revenue. You're de-risking this asset in the hands of Radius-like companies. And then 5, 6, 7 years later, after you've generated sufficient data before revenue generation, just you sell that IP and that asset to pharma that has another 5 years and multi-million-dollar investment to do before they can monetize it. So this relay game is quite new to a lot of folks. And when you're in academia and you think you have something new, you are clueless. Clueless what it takes in terms of what you need to do, how much money it's going to be, all the risks.
You have no idea.
So I give them that peace of mind. Say, we've been in there and done that. My team comes from pharma R&D.
This is what I do.
This is what we do. We come from venture. We come from the buyers. We're going to help you design this puppy and execute this puppy so that you have something that's sellable at that stage.
Love it.
So that's what I do. I help them with peace of mind.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Simplify.
First thing, an exit. So most of the exits are, I'm assuming, like licensing deal where, they're getting XYZ out of every cell because, then it comes manufacturing and then marketing and on and on. That's not cheap.
Yeah.
So what is a typical exit? Is it something like that? Or is it like, here's my IP or patent, whatever, just here, take it all?
It varies. It varies. So if you build a company around a single asset, it's not recommended, but it's not uncommon because you are focusing risk behind a single asset. So you're not spreading the risk. If you just have a company built around one asset, you will just sell your company, meaning you will sell that asset in just an asset sale transaction. And so you will transfer IP rights to the buyer. You're out. You walk away.
And how does that trade, by the way? Is that because it's very different than what we do here, right? We are trying to help raise capital or sell, exit, help people on EBITDA that's already proven or pro forma EBITDA. And if it's 2 years, that's a long shot for us, right? Like someone like, what you're representing here, how do they sell that? It's pro forma, I'm assuming, but there's no revenue. It's not even like a tech play where they're pre-revenue. I get that part, but this is a completely different animal.
Yeah, there's a whole science to valuing that depending on, so we usually do comps methodology. So in a particular disease area.
So you have a migraine now.
So we have a migraine. So we take a look what Jazz Pharmaceuticals and others are developing or what the commercialized products are. What are the ranges of the potential revenues? You risk adjust it. You do some modeling, as you mentioned, pro forma, and then you discount it if you're a buyer significantly, and then there's a negotiation. But at least it gives you a sense whether that's going to be a $250 million transaction or if it's going to be $1 billion transaction. So it kind of gives you a range.
But how do you, is that on a multiple that it will, like, so the next 3 year pro forma, it will sell, this pill for migraine would sell, $3 billion a year.
Yeah.
How do you even come up with that model?
So again, the comps. So you will try, if you have an indication where there are marketed products, you will take those as proxy, as a best case scenario. And then you will take a look at how likely is that from when you're selling, let's say it's phase 2, and knowing that you have an entire phase 3 trial and another 5 years to do. So if I am a buyer, I will take a look at the data, and then I will take a look at what I could be making. And then I will establish conviction that what is the risk adjustment to that one. So we'll do maybe a 5-year revenue multiplier and then risk adjusted backwards. And then you also want to subtract the cost of your own clinical trial that you now, because you're not buying a ready-made product. No. You're buying a product, you're buying a prototype. Wow. That you still need to invest in.
A great idea.
So now you have a $2 billion drug in the market and you think you can make $2 billion because you're better. You do 5, years of projection. So that's 10 billion, but it's going to take you $500 million in trials. So you subtract that and manufacturing and whatnot, and then additional risk adjustment. And then you go back and you say, well, the chances of this trial succeeding are so low. So here, seller, I'm going to discount it by 90%. Right. I'm going to offer you maybe 30 million up front. Yeah. Because I'm carrying so much risk, and I'm going to structure this deal in what we call biobucks. Right. On the back end, you're going to get all these bells and whistles. Today, to me, because there's still so much risk and unknown, I'm paying you only 30 million on a drug that I think I can make 2 billion on. Right. And it's common. Yeah. You just kind of front or, back end your risk, and then price is upfront fees are abysmal these days in biotech. Right. M&A is kind of, on a standstill.
But that's when I could appreciate someone like you and a partner in you, if I was on that side, that you did capital investments yourself. You work for large R&D pharma, big pharma. You work for large venture capital. You've seen all sides. Yeah. And it's easy to say a lot of things where, I'll do this for you. I promise you as a consultant. But I appreciate a consultant that has walked all those shoes, someone like yourself. And, you hear all these horror stories, and I got burned there before. I did well myself personally before with private equity and whatnot. But they're not all bad guys. So someone to discount it by 90%, you're like, oh, they're a shark, they're taking advantage. Well, the risk that they're taking also, you have to consider that. But someone like you could really get in the room and go you know what? I see both sides because I've been in both sides. Yeah. It's really hard to find that. Yeah. Because you have advisors, consultants. Oh, yeah. Take the deal. I get a commission. I'm out of here. But for someone to walk all sides of that, that's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you. And one thing I will say about exits in biotech, there's really not a large number of buyers. Right. If you have a generalist business, you make your pick. In biotech and in pharma, the buyer will have to already have manufacturing capability for a similar type of product that they're making. They have to have a franchise that's already dedicated to that. Right. They have to be in that disease area to have the know-how, to have the medical liaisons and the sales. So for them to be even thinking about acquiring a product that's still so much risk, you're left with 3 potential buyers for the stuff that you've been building for 10 years. So the ones that are most successful in exiting post phase 2, before phase 3 clinical trials, are the ones that have been selling since day one. Right. You have to engage a buyer for many, many years.
Pre-sell.
Pre-sell, it's a long sales cycle, sometimes 3, 4, 5 years. Right. You may want to bring in somebody from the 3 buyers that are potential buyers on your board. You need to be thinking about your exit on day one, how you design a target product profile. What experiments do I need to do for these 3 buyers to be like, no, I want it. To create that BATNA, to create that arbitrage opportunity or auctioning opportunity. You keep them close, and because it's such a long game, You need a partner along the way. They can advise you today. Oh, why do I need to think about exit, which is going to be like in 5 years? No.
Right.
If you don't start selling today, you're not going to sell it in 5 years. Then somebody will give you 90% discount. Right. And you're going to be like,
they're along for the ride. Yeah. And remember, the idea is always greater sometimes than facts.
And you know this. Yeah, emotions drive a lot of buying. So now the risk in this is you now are courting one person that's a champion for your product inside of that large pharma company.
Right.
Well, people move and they leave, and then
things happen.
Having just one buyer does not help you. You want to, spread that. So it's a very nuanced game.
Right.
Very few folks win.
Right.
There's a scientific risk, technical risk, manufacturing risk, clinical risk, regulatory risk, financing risk, exit risk, you name it.
Everything.
And people do it every day.
Right.
With passion.
That's amazing.
Because their patience, the end of the line. This is a very blessed profession that every day you show up and you say, you know what, there's this patient that needs this migraine drug. Right. There's this cancer patient because, my aunt had this type of cancer, or, my cousin has this rare disease. Right. And they do it for them.
That's awesome.
And I think that's the beauty of this very, risky business, why we do it.
Right.
It's the patient.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So you and I were talking earlier, and I had to rudely stop you because I think that's the coolest thing you said. You wear a lot of different hats, and a lot of your people that you deal with does the same thing, your founders and everyone. And the subject was founder and CEO. Mm-hmm. What is the big difference between the two in your words?
Yeah, I was telling you, I just had this discussion with my husband over dinner last night, because it hit me when I hand out my business card. It says founder and CEO. Yeah. And it's very easy when you start your own company to identify with everything that needs to be done. Yeah. When you're founder, you are the CEO, you're the visionary, you're the HR, you're the janitor, you get the printer unstuck. You do LinkedIn posts, you do everything. But then along the way, you hire the right people if you want to be successful. Right. And in my line of business, it's very risky to be a sole proprietorship. Right. You have to have a team because it's very expert driven. So if, you have this founder and they have to grow into a CEO. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of 3 years, the fact that you're the founder can only hurt you as a CEO, because you're not stepping back and not delegating and not oftentimes not trusting your team to execute on stuff, but because you've historically been doing it. Right. Are you the right CEO for the stage of the company that you've taken it to? And so we had this discussion of how to decouple being a founder and the CEO, and whether I am even personally well suited to take my company into the next stage of growth. Right. Because, we're on the growth trajectory. We've been operating for 6 years. But my skill set is, I'm like, a former venture capital founder and the scientist. And do I know now how to, triple the revenue, quadruple the revenue? And, it's a discussion that I have to have with myself to say.
Which is really hard, by the way, because you have to have an honest discussion with yourself.
Very emotional.
The hardest discussion we have in life is the one in front of the mirror, right? Mm-hmm. It is difficult. Yeah. So what advice do you give to your clients and your founders that, hey, because the way I look at your business is that I'm the founder now. I found this great migraine drug. Mm-hmm. But, maybe I need to go, hey, I could call Dr. New. Yeah. She could be my CEO or fractional CEO, whatever you want to call it. Let me offload this to her, because you come in, you're non-emotional. Mm. You're doing things based on market research and facts. I have the greatest drug in the world. I promise. I'm passionate. I lost an aunt because she suffered through pain or whatever. My mom, whatever it may be. So I'm very emotional, passionate. And all I see is that I have the greatest drug in the world. I'm the founder. I'm supposed to feel that way. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for someone like me in this case to say, hey, time out, buddy. I'm glad, but keep finding stuff. Yeah. Let me run with that. How hard is that conversation?
It's a hard conversation. And I think it's a personality funnel. If you're a founder, chances are you're type A, you're very passionate about what you're doing, your idea is your baby, and you want to be there to continue to grow it. So you have this conflict internally, right? Mm-hmm. I want what's best for the company, but at the same time, you can't always evolve or up your skills as fast as the company needs it. Right. And it's easy for me to advise my clients right now that are scientists at a university or first-time CEOs and say, you know what, this is a relay game. This is how the market operates, and investors are actually expecting you to have a team. Right. But for me, I'm very biased, right? Well, I'm a services business, right? It doesn't have to be a relay game in the type of business that Radius is, right? So it is an internal conflict whether I am, helping or hurting my company in the long run because I'm a majority shareholder. Right. With my skill set, will Marta be able to get it to the EBITDA multiple? Because my business right now is valued on EBITDA multiple with a little bit of, premiums. Yeah. But so am I listening to my own advice? Right. And it just hit me a couple of days ago in conversations with one of my girlfriends who is stepping aside and firing herself as a CEO. Right. To take it to the next level, just the sheer idea of, wait, I don't have to be a CEO of my own company to help it thrive and succeed. Right. I can replace myself with somebody with the better skill set for the phase, and I can stay involved. I can be the executive chairman of the board. I'm a majority shareholder. I'm not abandoning it.
It's my company.
So you have for me, it's now I'm going through this very fresh realization. Having known all this and advising others, now that it's my turn, I'm in their shoes.
It's difficult.
I have to do that mirror conversation and say, what do I care about? Right. What's my legacy? Right. I can certainly continue to do this, and I will be successful to, at this point. Mm-hmm. But what do I really want to do with this company, and can I continue and whatnot? So I have some soul searching to do. Yeah. I have some thinking to do, and nothing will be an overnight decision. No. But even, that evolution of a person, and leaving ego aside to see the big picture and say, I want what's best for the company. And now we're decoupled. Right. Now it's no longer Marta New equals Radius Research. This has taken a life on its own.
And it's hard. It's hard. And because now you're allowing someone else to put their fingerprints all over your idea,
it's
your
like
dream.
Being a parent.
It is.
Being a parent. They're going off to college and they're not moving back. It's terrifying, right?
What do I do? We have a 15-year-old and we think about it all the time, like, oh my God, in 3, what do we do? Yeah. I remember my wife telling that, especially, so we have 3 kids. When EB was born, we're like, we really want him to study in the Northeast when he grows up. This is like when he's a month old, right? Like, we can't wait. 18, we're the parent. We're going to have him move and learn. Now that's getting closer. We're like, hey, we have some great schools around here.
Yes,
like,
they stick around.
You know what? Maybe the first 2 years and then everything changes. So no different than the founder-CEO conversation.
Yeah, we evolve as parents and we evolve as founders and we evolve in anything and everything that we do because our experiences shape us. Correct. And we can learn from it or we can be entrenched in our own ways, and that's fine too.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine too.
What is next for Radius?
Quite a lot of exciting things. So I've mentioned the, Asian angle. Yeah. And so last year we partnered with the South Korean CRO because my business doesn't have brick and mortar labs. Okay. But for me to do what I say I'm going to do and deliver on the data that my clients need, I have to partner with groups that actually do the experiments. And so we partner with the South Korean CRO, Contract Research Organization, last year. So we're really doubling down on sending work there and then cross-pollinating, bringing in biotech companies to the U.S. from South Korea. Got it. And we plan on continuing to do that with different Asian partners. Got it.
And I'm sure the FDA doesn't require, so animal testing could be done wherever. It's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Does human testing have to be in the United States, or it doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't have to be, but they need to okay the protocol.
Okay.
So you have to go there and talk to them.
Right.
But then if the protocol is to their liking and the data is
That
to
makes
their
sense.
liking,
Yeah.
then they will acknowledge
Okay.
it. And so, drug development is truly a global effort.
Okay.
You can manufacture your drug in Canada, do animal testing in South Korea,
Doesn't
do
matter.
clinical testing in Australia.
Which makes sense. I mean,
And then eventually in the US, and it all works because you want to make sure to use the arbitrage opportunities.
Right.
Prices are not equal.
Of course,
There's a huge spread.
and speed, timeline too.
Speed, timeline, cost, all of that matters.
Matters, yeah.
And it's a very competitive field, so you want to win, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have global partnerships, you're missing out.
Fair enough.
So that's one way that we are going to be growing,
Okay.
the geographical.
Okay.
But then the second one is we're actually partnering with investors.
Oh, cool.
Now is the time to start new companies or acquire assets at pennies on a dollar because I don't know how it is in tech. Actually, I know how it is in tech, driven by AI, hype. Biotech venture funding has died down.
This is a great time then.
Yeah, guess who finances these companies in this period that we serve? These VCs that are not writing any checks.
Wow, yeah.
So there are other sources of capital, private equity, family offices.
It's the new big thing now, yeah.
Exactly. That are saying, where can we go in and partner with groups that know how to develop products so that we do smart investing in the sector, which is right now undervalued.
Right.
But, historically, it's everything cyclical and it's going to bounce back.
So it's a great time then, yeah.
Now is a great time to enter biotech. Do not do it on your own. Do not predict stuff on your own if you've not been investing in biotech.
Right.
But find partners that have seen patterns, that come from pharma, that come from drug development, that can give you the insights on what assets to buy or how to build your portfolio and how to manage that portfolio actively.
Fair enough.
And you can buy big chunks of biotech companies today because they're way more sellers than buyers. There's some good science sitting on shelves, undeveloped, because of the drought in the venture funding.
Got it.
So the capital markets are changing for biotech. And who's recognizing that pattern right now? It's probably going to close in the next 18 to 24 months.
Right.
Now is the time to jump into biotech, not to shy away from it.
Right.
Because
jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
And talk to you.
Jump in, talk. Among others.
So you have a venture capital side to Radius now?
We don't have our own fund,
but
some of our clients are investors that are putting in
Would
cash.
you be open to your own fund?
Yeah, I'd love that.
No, I love that. That's a great idea there. So, for someone like me, and to kind of go back to what you said earlier, the pre-sale, I love that idea. So personally for me, I have done, I don't know, north of $3 billion in real estate transactions personally.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I don't know the exact number now, but I probably did about 95 to 97% of the transactions where I sold real estate before I bought it.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than buying real estate when you sold it at the closing table.
Yeah.
And I would sign and I would sell simultaneously. And I don't know why people are so afraid of that. And yes, I probably left a lot of money on the table. But guess what? My risk was zero.
Yeah.
Selling before you buy, it's the greatest strategy you could think of.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And you'll get less. I get it.
Yeah.
But you get something.
Well, you always have to optimize for something.
Correct.
You're optimizing for certainty or you're optimizing for the return and then, you have lower certainty. So depending on when you're looking to sell for how much, you can't optimize for both.
Right.
You
can't. No.
It's really hard. Yeah. So in your case, you were optimizing for certainty at, pre-agreed price.
And scale.
At scale. There you go.
And the way I tell people, and this was hard for me, but you have to realize what you're good at, right? I've been, around for a long time now, but I think I'm good at one or two things in life. Maybe that might be a stretch. But I told you earlier, I suck at 80,000 things. And if you don't believe me, call Habiba. She has a list of every one of them.
Is that your wife?
Yes, that's my wife, and she's the only human on earth that has 80,000 great things and 0 bad things, right? CJ, make sure you send her that clip. I said that on air. But honestly, like, you know, if you know what you're good at, and especially what you recognize you're not good at, someone like you comes in so helpful and handy, because now you're really dialing in. Now that pre-sale is not scary anymore, because if I'm the founder, if I'm that scientist, if I'm in that lab, I know I could create more product, and I just dump it to someone like yourself that I could trust or partner up with. Pre-sale all day long, because I'm off to the next one. And imagine how many more products, how many more people, whatever the passion is behind that project could turn into.
Yeah.
Or I could say, no, I'm not going to pay a radius. I'm not going to partner up with someone. I'm going to be the CEO, and I'm going to be that person that could do it. And I'm sure there's people out there that could do it all. Yeah. The Elon Musk of the world, like, great, right? I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not smart enough, right? If I could create or invent or, you know, get 10 products out in the market over the next 10 years versus one that may or may not succeed, that part I just never understood, because I'm biased towards that, and I'm okay with saying, you know what, I'm not good at that.
I think you nailed it. I think, you know, what you're talking about is basically, you know, what brings you joy?
Yeah.
And what is, you know, what you feel like is your objective. If you are looking to scale and to do something better and better each time, then you have to create a system that, you know, enables specialization. And, you know, in, you know, your case, you know, you create a pipeline of buyers and sellers, and then you just churn them around. And, you know, for us, it's the system that we're building. And then on the flip side, you encounter folks that get joy from learning things on their own and doing things on their own, and doing it from scratch, and then rinse and repeat. And they get pride in that process, and that's not scalable. Right. And that's fine.
Yeah. That's okay.
Too. Yeah. And so you and I value scale, value efficiency.
Yeah, that's what gets us going.
And that's something tells me we're going to find a way to do business after
this. Yes, for sure. For sure.
Because, you know, like attracts alike.
Right.
And what frustrates me to no end is having to work with a client who doesn't understand that they are missing out on scaling and developing a better product the second time or the third time, because they can incorporate the knowledge and the know-how. And they just enjoy that one single journey for themselves.
But you're missing out on so much.
And so
whatever the passion is, by the way.
And that's one of the ways that we pre-select our clients, going back to your, you know, 3 questions ago. It's also the personality fit.
For sure.
If I get a client with the sense of urgency that says, you know what, I have these 3 people on my team and I need 5 of these. I don't want to be hiring them, firing them, and, you know, what if they don't get along? Yeah. I just want to start on day 1 with the team that's experienced as yours. Here's a check. For the next 12 months, we'll figure out what to do after. Right. Let's go. Yeah. But if somebody tells me, well, you know what, I have something that's super awesome, and then I'm going to do this in 3 months, and then I'll call you in 9 months when I do this. And I'm like, if you're going to do this alone, you're going to call me in 24 months. And with that news. And so that initial conversation, their attitude towards what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and what's their internal quality expectation tells me if I can even bear to work with them. And by I mean my team, because we're all type A's. We're all, you know, very structured, efficient, and go, go, go. Right. And so if a client has all the time in the world and is thinking, well, no, sorry, I'll connect you with people who work at your pace. Right. Single consultant, you know, working out of New Mexico, retired. You know, you guys go and take your time. Yeah. Take your time. Have fun.
Do it.
Not for me.
Right. No, I'm with you. So, and for me, that is, you know, again, I'm more of an entrepreneur than anything. All my life, I thought, you know, I'm not good at a lot of things. And for me, I'm not a perfectionist. 70% is great. Let's go. Yeah. So many people dwell on perfection. Yeah. And it's like, you know when perfection happens? Never. you'll never start.
Tell that to scientists that have been in schooling for 30, 40 years, and they are innate perfectionists because that's how the society values them.
Correct.
And then they can't realize
you'll never get there.
Product development, it's 80-20 rule.
It's okay, right? But now that I jumped onto this advisory side, and it's very new for me, and I'm talking to people and filtering clients, and you think people are more like you, right? Because that's all you know in life. And you talk to people and they're like, same thing. And they're like, well, we think we have a great business and we want to sell it tomorrow. And I'm like, well, that's amazing. And you do have a great business. We're not just business brokers here. I know a lot of business brokers that could help you sell tomorrow, but we're over here trying to optimize your business, and it takes time. We're good at what we do, but we're not magicians. We could raise you a lot of capital, but no one's going to just throw capital at you without, there's a program. There's things that you have to do and make sure it makes sense and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, I know a guy that told me, and I'm like, you should call that guy.
Call that guy.
I never met that guy, but he's better than I am. I promise you. But if you're not willing to make those changes for a larger exit and you're not even understanding the multiple EBITDA and how this thing works, we're not the right fit. It's okay. Yeah. By the way, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Not everyone is made for each other. It's okay. Yeah. You don't want someone to wait. And they don't realize that someone like you and myself, especially in your business, your whole point is to make them successful. You guys are tied at the hip. You're an extension of you're representing their company. Yeah. And the better they do, you do. Yeah. You're not fighting against each other. And it's hard for people to understand that sometimes. It's difficult.
It's very difficult.
The FDA, that's a whole different subject, right? You said earlier that politics does not play a big role from where I sit, from our world. It makes it, at least every politician comes in and says, we're going to make changes. You're saying that doesn't have much effect. How does RFK versus not, like someone that's speaking like, we want the country to be healthy. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on. How does that scare people? Does it do anything for your industry?
It does. It adds another layer of uncertainty. Yeah.
Does it slow things down?
What's slowing things down is not necessarily the stance. I think, they're right now trying to, what's the word? Optimize or improve the agency. And, they're acting in, according to the values, which are, let's shrink the number of folks, let's use technology, let's do all of that. And so I see the benefit, and the industry sees the benefit that's underlying, how can we bring this agency into the 21st century? Right. How can we use alternative testing for, how can we eliminate maybe use of animals so that we can develop maybe in silico models or some what we call ex vivo. You take a human tissue and you grow it in the lab, and you grow this organ in the lab, and then you test it there. So there is a room for modernizing how you ensure that it's safe and efficacious for humans. Right. I think the pushback is that any new technique needs to be validated first to ensure, yes, if you test this in this particular, 3D printed organ, that it is going to track in humans. Right. And that takes time. Right. And so I think there's a little bit of uncertainty and pushback in the scientific community that things are done in a thoughtful way. Right. So directionally, I think there's an alignment, but rushing through implementing some things may be too premature. And there's going to be a trial and error. Again, I just hope that, people in clinical trials are not skeptical or scared to participate in clinical trials, because some of the changes that are being proposed may lead to less certain outcomes in the clinical trial. So if you're, a patient and you sign up for a clinical trial, you may feel like it was not sufficiently tested, right? And stuff. So, but these things take time. And so time will tell how this all evolves. Right. But I think directionally, it's in the long run, designed to save time and money, which I think is going to benefit patients in the long run because it's going to bring therapies sooner to the bedside.
Well, ultimately, the goal is to financially or help people. It doesn't matter. But the goal is to help more patients. Because that's when you monetize also. So it doesn't matter if you're looking from a business sense or a passion, ultimately. But bureaucracy gets in the way sometimes, and it takes time. Do you guys do anything international as far as selling drugs internationally?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is that a lot quicker, or how does that work?
Yes and no. A lot of regulatory bodies, you speak China, you speak Korea, and a lot of European markets. They watch what the FDA is doing.
Okay.
Because to sell a drug effectively, you have to have a U.S. market because it's one of the largest.
You're the consumer, right?
Exactly.
We buy everything, whether we need it or not.
And so chances are, you can go and do trials maybe faster in Australia, and then you can maybe get an approval sooner in different markets. But until the U.S. market is secured through the FDA approvals, your value of the drug is not going to be as high as possible. And so the buyers that are willing to do it are different. And, your leverage when it comes to exit is lower if you select to just go, let's say, in Brazil, because that was a shorter trial. But, can you recuperate the cost of R&D if you just launch in Brazil? Because their regulators approved it. So it's, again, going back to drug development, it's a global endeavor to develop it and to commercialize it and to make sure that you have spoken with the right regulatory authorities in each of the markets because they have their nuances. For that. But the FDA is standard.
Is it because it is that much harder, or the consumer confidence globally?
The FDA is the gold standard for following the high quality requirements on safety and efficacy. And so that's why it has been, again, the bar that everybody wants to meet. There are certain markets like, Germany that are higher than that, right? And kudos to them. But whenever you have extra work to do, that's extra cost and extra time.
Yes. And time does everything.
And so it's all balanced. And, I feel like we're repeating this theme over and over again. Wherever you're in your product development cycle or even your service development cycle, knowing who's going to be your buyer and why, where in the world, and how are you customizing the features of the product and the service to satisfy that, to maximize the value at exit, the better off you'll be.
Fair enough. And it makes sense. Right. So what's next for you? You have a lot going on in the professional world. What's next? Exit in the horizon one day, or you seem like you're way too energetic and too passionate about everything you do. So I don't think that's anytime soon, but what's next?
Yeah, so, I do see Radius continuing to grow, and we have weathered the pandemic and the down markets and,
going through this
FDA changes.
Yeah.
And, we adapted, we listened to the markets, we adjusted. And so we're trending to continue to grow. And we don't have to sell. Now, that being said, we're getting called, right? Hey, are you interested in this and whatnot? So we're going to be open to it, but when the right opportunity comes, whether that's in 2 years and 4 years and whatever years, we're in no rush. You asked me about the venture fund. I come from venture investing, and so I'm always kind of gravitating towards it. So maybe I go back into venture. Is definitely this Radius gig will have made me a more sophisticated investor.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that's just yet another angle from how I've seen this industry. And I can see trends and risks. And now I've met so many different people that can resourcefully help me with selecting the right investment, being an active investor, and then making
you see so many sample sizes. You have a gut feeling too, instinct. You could tell that this one will pass the sniff test or it won't.
But I'm opportunistic. You know, if Emory Business School called me and asked me to teach a class on entrepreneurship, I'd say yes, right? You know, this is a very apprenticeship-based industry.
Right.
And, you know, paying it forward and teaching the new generation is stuff that I'm very passionate about. And, you know, I have more than half of my company are, you know, PhDs fresh out of academia. This is the first industry job.
They're jumping in.
And they have strong work ethics, super brilliant, highly educated, and they just need to, you know, have that opportunity to be in the room to help and guide and grow. And so I'm excited for them.
All the energy.
Yeah, grooming them to be the next COOs and CTOs and CSOs of the companies. And then just, you know, getting the next generation of STEM folks to think like business-minded people. Because in our industry specifically, having that PhD and having that MBA, it's not a must, but it's a strong differentiator.
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, personal life, what do you do for fun besides Taekwondo and beating people up? Seems like
Taekwondo is something
tell me
new.
about this.
My kids have been in Taekwondo for years, and you know, I sit on the sidelines and I now all know all the moves. And it's like a new family at the dojo. So
are you that loud mother on the side who are screaming at your kids? And because I feel like this ref's been generous with me. I should have been kicked out way too many times out of soccer games. I remember one time my wife was so embarrassed, poor thing, at a soccer game, and you know, my kid gets tackled clearly as in my eyes, right? I'm like, ref, and the ref blows a whistle. He comes to me and look at this kid. He's like 12. And I get so embarrassed. He's like, one more word, sir, you're out of here. And I'm like, oh, darn it. So are you that mom?
Yeah, I am that. Yeah. If you're passionate on all fronts. So when they do testing and they do combat sparring, I'm the one who says, kick higher, kick, you know, go for the head and, you know, get, but then I was reprimanded at the meet. That's not allowed. So I got the same thing. Okay, ma'am, you either step out or you zip it. So Taekwondo, and it's kind of tied to, you know, the Korean partnership, and I'm learning over there about the culture and through the sport, and it's a very...
You travel a lot?
I do.
Yeah, international, inside? Both, okay.
Both.
What's your favorite place that you've been to?
I like London.
I love, you know what?
London.
Besides New York City, if I had one more place to live, London would be it.
London. I have a lot of friends.
Yeah, great city.
Love London.
Great city.
I like Berlin.
Really?
I have relatives in Berlin, so it's a party city.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's why I'm not there. I'm not a party guy at all. Terrible.
And I was in Seoul last summer for the first time, and
how was that?
CJ, I quite liked that. I could see
so my brother-in-law is Korean, and my kids love him. So we're flirting with the idea one day of visiting Korea. I'm like, that would be so cool.
Oh, you will love it.
Yeah.
The food, Women are beautiful.
Yeah.
People are just handsome in general.
Yeah.
And very polite.
Yeah.
And very clean and professional. And did I mention the food?
Yes. Yeah. And my kids are like, Dad, you know, they keep sending me YouTube videos. They're like, Dad, you know, this food market, this market, that market. And we have to
H Mart. Doraville.
Yeah.
I'm there all the time.
That's you.
Yeah. So you asked me what I do for fun. I do Taekwondo. I'm also a power lifter.
How about that?
I'm a competitive power lifter.
Wow.
I started it probably 10 years ago.
That's why you're getting the deals done at the FDA. If you don't comply.
Powerlifting it's actually more aligned with my core personality type than Taekwondo.
Right.
So powerlifting is like you lift for 3 seconds. You just need to fight gravity for 3 seconds and lift a heavy object from the ground.
It's all mental.
It's a deadlift or a squat or a bench press.
Right.
And it's very high power, very high intensity, but short term.
Right.
And that's kind of how I am personally. I have ADHD, and I'm like, just short tasks. I'm going to be 100%, and then I'm going to crush. But again, the reason why I feel like I got attracted to Taekwondo is that you need to stay calm for long periods of times, and it helps me.
Which is difficult for us. Yes, yes.
And then move your body and have power, but then grace. And it's a new skill that I'm learning through the sport, right? But training my mind how to operate in certain situations, how to bite my tongue, how to be maybe more politically correct in meetings and such. So, yeah, it's an evolution.
I might need your advice on that. I need to take up on that.
Oh, I'm still learning. I'm far from
politically correct. I don't even know what that means. I try to stay calm here. Terrible. Yeah, I'm not very good with family Thanksgiving dinners and stuff. I'm always it's horrible.
Yes, yeah. You and I are very much.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 boys.
2 boys.
Yeah, they're 8 and 5.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I have 3. I have 2 boys and a daughter. 15-year-old son, 13-year-old son, and a 2-year-old daughter.
You're blessed.
And this is public knowledge now, as my kids say. She's my favorite. And they're like, Dad, Isabella is your favorite. I'm like, not even close. Yes.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. She's adorable. And she yells at me all day long.
Great.
It's amazing. Last night I'm sitting on the couch. She's like, Dad, no phone. Sit down. And I got to sit on the floor. And for 2 hours, I'm sitting on the floor. I can't move. Yeah. Every time I move, she's like, no, sit down. I'm like, she's got me locked in. Yeah. Of course. Well, what do I say? She's beautiful and, she's got all the right tricks up her sleeves and I can't move.
She's got your heart.
Yeah, and my kids say something, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's what they say. The universe brings you a soul that will course correct certain inefficiencies to enable you to grow as a person. So maybe she's the soul that was sent to you
100%.
to teach you certain things, to teach you patience.
It makes more sense now.
And so I love her for you for that.
No, she's been a life changer. She's been amazing. Even though my back doesn't agree with me because everything hurts now. But
it's a phase.
It's a phase. It's terrible. I get up in the morning and kids are like, why are you in pain? I'm like, I slept, dude.
That's what my husband says. Everything hurts. Why does everything hurt? But he wrestles with them. And I'm like, that's why everything
That's probably
hurts.
why.
Yeah.
Any summer plans?
Yes, we're going to do an RV trip. Probably the Smokies.
Okay.
We have a senior dog.
Okay.
And she told me that it's on her bucket list to do a little road trip.
Love that dog.
Yeah. She loves road trips.
That's amazing.
Loves walking the woods. So we're going to keep it.
Is this the first time RV trip or have you done it before?
First time.
You have to tell me all about it. Next year is what my kids are big soccer. I say kids, but my boys, soccer guys. So next year they want to do an RV trip for World Cup, like a 2-week stretch. So I'm a little skittish. I like nice hotels and nice things.
You can rent a bus that rock stars take on tours, and that's there's a website for so
it's not
next
really
level.
An RV trip.
Yeah, no,
it's a Justin Bieber bus.
It's a Justin Bieber bus, and it's super high-end luxury. Everything is super awesome looking, modern.
Right.
Awesome finishes. The price tag, spicy, but for 2 weeks, who cares, right? And then, so don't be fooled by the RV
Let me
trip.
know.
Yeah,
Let me know how you like yours.
Solutions out there for,
I'm sure.
I'm
sure. I'd love to know all about it.
Yeah.
Well, we need to grab lunch or dinner, maybe get the family together one day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in. I know you're a busy person. Thank you and good luck with everything.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.